In Exhibit 235 is the gun safe, or I'm sorry, that is after you've removed the gun safe from the TV stand in the cupboard.
Yeah, I saw a lot of, I don't know what picture you're referring to, I'm sorry.
Yes, let me see if I can find it.
Are you referring to the one that was recovered in the kitchen?
No, this is the actual gun safe that was recovered in the, actually, you know what, let me do it this way. I have a hard copy of it. It'll be easier for me to get to. May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. I might also ask about 236, so I'm going to bring them both to you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so 235 is the picture of the master bedroom. It's the dresser where the gun safe was recovered from. At this point, the gun safe had been removed. And all of this that you're seeing, the magazines, the gun holster, and the bullets in the background were below that safe that we took out from there.
And those magazines, the two magazines, those were empty.
They were.
When you say below, they were underneath on the lower shelf.
Yep, no, so the gun safe was recovered on top of all that. So at this point, this picture is showing once the gun safe had been taken out, and that's below that.
And 236, if you could look at 236, that's a picture of the magazines and the ammunition that was removed from that cupboard, correct?
Yeah, so at this point, everything was taken out and photographed on top of that TV stand there. It's the two magazines, the bullets inside of the bag, even the box that the ammunition was in.
And I just wanted to confirm that those were the same magazines that were inside the cabinet.
Yeah, correct.
So those were empty.
They were empty.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Detective.
Thanks.
When you were discussing Exhibit 256 with the prosecutor specifically asked you if there were no other locking mechanisms found in the home. Do you remember that question?
I do.
You arrived at the home after, if you recall, after 2 p.m. on November 30th of 2021.
Yeah, it was short. It was around the time of the first video we saw. I don't know the exact time, but around the first time of the video we saw. The first video.
So it's fair to say you have no knowledge of what was in that house prior to your arrival at approximately 2:50 on November 30th of 2021.
Yeah, I can only speak to what I saw when I went inside the residence. I don't know what was there prior.
You can't say whether or not there were any additional locking mechanisms in the house that morning. Is that fair? You have no knowledge of that.
Again, yeah, I can only speak to what I saw and what I found. I don't know what was there prior.
Exhibit 260, you went through some photos of video games. 257 was some video game, the gaming system. 258 were video games. 259 was more video games. 260, if you recall, and I can hand you the exhibit if you'd like, was Call of Duty and a game that you weren't familiar with, Attack on Titan.
Correct.
Did you need to look at that exhibit?
No,
Okay. Call of Duty, based on your testimony, it sounded like you were a little familiar with Call of Duty.
Yeah, I don't play video games, but obviously I'm familiar just with seeing commercials, and I'm aware of what Call of Duty is.
Okay. And on the front, on the cover, it has WW2 for World War II. Is that correct?
Correct.
Call of Duty, you would agree, is a type of military video game.
Correct.
It's what would be described as a first-person shooter video game.
Correct.
And if you know, and if you don't, please tell me you don't know. A person playing Call of Duty is a person holding a firearm in the video game and engaging in combat. If you know.
Honestly, I'm probably the last person to test about video games. I don't play video games. I don't know.
But to your knowledge, it is a military video game, which is a first-person shooter military video game.
Correct.
At the end of your direct testimony, you discussed that the prosecutor asked you if James Crumbley's phone was seized, correct?
Correct.
Now, there are a couple of different ways that law enforcement can obtain somebody's cell phone. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
You can get a search warrant and take it from them, right?
Correct.
They can hand it to you, right?
Correct.
You can say something like, you can give it to me or we'll get a search warrant, and they can hand it to you, right?
Correct.
In this case, if you recall, at some point Mr. Crumbley did not have his cell phone because he said, I need to get my cell phone back, correct? While in the back of a patrol car.
Correct.
At some point he got his cell phone back.
I didn't have any exchange with him after that about the cell phones. Honestly, I don't know if he got it back.
Now, do you recall that, if you're not aware, just let me know, are you aware that there was some conversation about James and his wife giving their phones to law enforcement and them having to obtain some sort of another phone to be able to communicate with their family?
Yeah, so at some point, Lieutenant Marsban showed up at 112 East Street, and he had a conversation with James and Jennifer about the cell phones. I don't know the specific language of the search warrant, but the phones were given to Marsban, who then he provided to me and my partner, and we took them back to the high school.
And if you recall, there was also some discussion about how James and Jennifer could obtain kind of a temporary phone so that they would be able to communicate with people while law enforcement had their phones, if you recall.
Yeah, that was a conversation I had with Lieutenant Marsban. I don't remember the specifics of the conversation, but I know they did have a conversation about the phones.
Okay, so you just know that there was a conversation that occurred where it was discussed with James and Jennifer how to obtain like a temporary phone, like a track phone or something like that.
I don't know the specifics of the conversation. I just know that they did have a conversation about it.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Just quickly, thank you. Detective, did James ever once tell you that the 6-hour 9mm used to commit the Oxford High School shooting was ever locked up?
He did not.
Okay, nothing further.